In this video,
over here, to be honest, it's not for everybody.
Okay? So it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Kenyan publisher operating Minnesota's longest-running African-centered community newspaper, and how he's using it as a vehicle for change.
I wanted to report on what other things, positive things and challenges, of course, that are happening back home that people are not getting.
For over 33 years, Minnesota-based Tom Gitaa has been building his reputation over no-nonsense, hard-hitting, African-centric trusted voice in matters public interest here in the City of Lakes, Minneapolis. And for 15 of those years, he's been a straight shooter as the president and publisher at Mshale, a digital and print publication providing the very latest of happenings around and from the African continent.
In the early 90s, we didn't have broadband space. The nation media and all of the African media that you see online nowadays was never online in the
So there was
90s.
a gap in terms
so there
of
was a gap in terms of information.
And
there used to be a joke that if you don't see your country in the news, or which means BBC and CNN, that means everything is okay back home, because they'll only report when there's something bad was happening. And as I wanted to report on what other things, positive things and challenges, of course, that are happening back home that people are not getting. So that's how I started Mshale. We are very, very heavily digital. In fact, most people who know Mshale, they get surprised when they hear, "Oh, you mean you have a print newspaper?" But we still do it. There's still a need for print newspaper. There are still some people who like getting the print paper because they go looking for it, especially when they know they are covered in print, because it has a different feel than the Mshale.com website when you go and you see your story there. For a good keepsake. So this has been home where my family, my wife and children were here.
Yes, Tom is all about sharing vital news to the African community abroad, arming them with a much-needed arsenal of information. And as they say, information is power. Thus, Mshale is like an arrow in their quiver.
So you do quite a lot of online postings.
Yeah, we do a lot of online, because this is how normally a lot of people, if we don't post it, there is a possibility they might miss it. You see, but usually what happens is people can, if they are not plugged into some of the other social media stuff, which is possible because some people, they think it can be overwhelming being plugged into everything, but they know they can come to Mshale.com and then they can catch up on what is going on. We even have an email list that has like 20-something thousand people on it, that we blast things out if there's a pretty significant community event going on. About 70% of our readers are African immigrants. In Minnesota, we have what we call the Big Five of the African immigrants. There are at least over 150,000 African immigrants in our state. And Mshale mostly focuses on what we call the Big Five.
The Big Five. The
Big Five, the largest population of Africans in our state are Somalis, followed by Ethiopians, followed by Liberians.
Wow.
Kenyans are number 4.
We are number 4.
Number 4, and then number 5 are Nigerians.
Now, a big plus for Tom and Mshale is the fact that Minneapolis provides a conducive environment for business, as evidenced by the number of businesses headquartered here.
In fact, the Twin Cities, as we call Minneapolis and St. Paul here in Minnesota, is really actually the home of what we call enclosed malls. Okay? The first enclosed mall in the world was actually started right here in a suburb called Edina, which is right next to Minneapolis. So there is a history of retail, and this mall construction is a big thing in Minnesota. And Minneapolis, what we call the Minneapolis St. Paul metro area, is also home to what we call the company called Medtronic.
Medtronic?
Medtronic is if you have a relative or somebody who has a pacemaker, for example, that was actually invented in this state. We also have a company called, some names that you might be familiar with, 3M.
3M.
3M is actually a Minnesota company. You might be familiar with the logo, says Scotch tape. Scotch tape. I think back kule nyumbani tunaita sellotape.
Sellotape, yes.
But that is actually an invention of this company called 3M. 3M actually stands for Minnesota Mining and Minerals.
Sellotape was invented here.
It was invented here in Minnesota. I think in the US, here actually we call it Scotch tape.
Scotch tape.
If you say sellotape, people would be wondering what you're talking about.
British.
Yes,
I think,
correct.
The presence of all these companies not only signifies good tidings for the degree in business management graduate, but also brings with it a ton of possibilities for growth.
They do advertising to reach the African immigrant community because in some of the smaller cities that we serve, African immigrants are can be quite significant. You see, like in a place like Brooklyn Park, where we're going to have the Daring Abroad
forum.
live taping and forum, a place like that, Africans probably constitute maybe even 20% of that 60,000 plus population.
Now, a bit about Tom. The son of Kisii was actually born and raised in Mombasa. This was back in the late 1960s and early 1970s.
My father, the way he ended up in Mombasa in the late 60s, I think he was recruited into the police force in the 1968 or so, I believe. And then he went to Mombasa. That's where he got stationed. And then my siblings and myself, I'm the firstborn. I was born in 1969. He was in the police force then. My only siblings that saw my father in police uniform was myself and my sister that follows me because he left the police force when I was still in nursery school.
So you went to school in Mombasa, primary, secondary?
I went to nursery school, I went to Aga Khan Nursery School, I went to Sacred Heart Primary School in Mombasa, and then for my O-levels, I went to Ribe High School in Kilifi County.
A-levels?
A-levels back to Mombasa County, in a school that no longer exists called Nyera High School. Okay, I was supposed to go to Malindi High School, but I had already had enough of boarding school. So that was my first major disagreement with my father, because I got called to go to Malindi High School, which is, as you know, is in Kilifi County.
So how did you end up in the US?
And then I ended up doing it in Mombasa County for my A-levels, which I finished in 88. So I was among the second to last lot that did the old system of A-levels. Okay, and then 88, 89, I was helping my dad with his business in Mombasa. He was a businessman for a long time in Mombasa. And then I couldn't get to the University of Nairobi where I wanted to go. So I ended up applying to come to the University of Minnesota here, but I ended up graduating instead from Metropolitan State University here in the...
So how did you come, as a student?
I came as an international student.
On a student visa?
I came on a student visa, F1 visa, like many international students. And then I finished the college, university, with a bachelor's in arts and business management. And then I started working in corporate America here locally with another Fortune 500 company called Best Buy, which some people might be familiar with. It was the largest electronics retailer for many years. It's still headquartered here in Minneapolis. And then as on the side I started the newspaper that you now know as Mshale, while I was actually in my last year of college right here.
Currently, Mshale's content includes political, business, sports and entertainment news, among others, reaching tens of thousands daily. Quite an impressive feat for the Mombasa native. Looking back, Tom is in awe of all he's achieved, and according to him, daring abroad was the right move despite it all.
America has really taught me perseverance and also just be a go-getter. Go for what you want. Okay, if there's a dream that you have, this the US for us is really the place. If we always joke that if you can't realize your dream here, then I don't know where else you're going to achieve
but
it.
for many people say it's a land of milk and honey. Would you advise anybody, just come, leave your country, leave your job, America is the place to go? Maju, is that the case?
No, not always the case. Over here, to be honest, it's not for everybody. Okay?
So it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, there are a lot of people who come, they find it tough and they go back. There are even some professionals who have visited with us and they come and survey and see if should I move here or not, and they do the cost-benefit analysis.
And they still succeed home.
And they decide, oh, home is still better. Yeah, so it's not for everyone, especially I'll say for people like myself who came young, and I was just turned 20 straight from A level. Sometimes it's different too, because you can do a lot of risky things
with the system.
The system, yeah.
And that's what Daring Abroad is all about.